let's just get right into it because we have a lot to talk about today. I threw out a concept in the Discord and got a lot of really good feedback for this episode. So I'm really excited to talk today. If you are
possible girlfriends for me. Oh, is that not what you put in the Discord? I thought we talked about that.
You're embarrassing yourself. Please stop.
Well,
again, not again.
You said you were going to do it, and you didn't. So just a little bit.
That would be the worst James place Harden. To ask in the Discord, the 99.9 percentile.
Yeah.
It's the YKB
male. Yeah, hey, the only place is male is the Bored Ape Yacht Club meetup.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and Daryl Morey's in both. So if you want to join the Unoball Discord, great advertisement for our Patreon. Sign up for our Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You can get access to an extra episode every week on Unoball. We did a whole thing about Zach Lavine last week, so we're going to start with some Zach Lavine's talk up top. But if you want to hear our full thoughts, we did over an hour on Zach Lavine last week. We talked about the Rudy Gobert, Draymond stuff. We talked about a lot of crazy shit on the last Patreon episode that has not aged poorly yet. In time, I'm sure it will, but yet it's still good. So go check that out on the Unoball Patreon. Sign up today. You can also watch streams with us on the Unoball Playback. We're recording live here. We just hit over 1,500 members on here. So that's it for the plugs. Let's get right into the slot. We're diving head first in, and we're going to talk about Zach Lavine and where he could possibly end up. Now, this isn't going to be as long as we talked about the fake trades that we did on the Patreon episode, but we do have some new news from Jake Fisher, who reported over the weekend that the few teams that are interested, and there are some mutual interest between Zach Lavine's camp and those teams, are the Lakers, the Heat, the Sixers. The teams that Shams reported on last week, there appears to be some mutual interest between Lavine and those teams. And then the other two teams that were a surprise to me were the San Antonio Spurs. Lavine is apparently interested in playing for them, and the Sacramento Kings. Shams expanded on that today, and he basically talked about how the Kings are probably going to be one of the more active teams at this deadline. They view their team as really good, and they want to make some upgrades. The top targets for them are the Raptors guys, Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. But as you know, on the Unoball podcast, we don't talk Raptor slop. No. We're not getting fooled again. We're not going to go into that. And until Masai Ujiri comes out himself and says anything, I am not fucking doing anything related to Raptor slop until we get there. But the Kings are interested in Zach Lavine, appears to have at least some mutual interest. I think the majority of teams are kind of it's basically exactly what we talked about on the last podcast. The majority of teams are like, okay, it's November. We're not gonna jump all over a Zach Lavine trade and pay top dollar for a guy who a lot of teams around the league don't value because of his contract, a guy who's in an unhappy situation, and over the course of the next month or two, the price will come down for him in trade. And then when we get to January and February, we could talk about some different kind of packages for him, is kind of what I've gathered so far.
Yeah. It seems like that's how this is kind of due to go down. I'm really surprised by the Spurs, to be honest. And I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess they have plenty of assets, but did they say if the Spurs were interested in that, or if that was a one-way street?
It sounded like Lavine was interested in joining the Spurs, but the Spurs didn't really put any I'm interested in, or we're interested in acquiring Zach Lavine from the Bulls. I think it probably was what Lavine and his camp probably sat down and said, okay, which teams have assets? The Sixers just got a bunch of assets from the James Harden trade with contracts and picks.
Yeah.
The Heat already have them. We know the Kings are kind of, they own most of their draft capital beyond this year, and the Spurs are pick positive, and they have Victor Wembanyama now. So they're a interesting, maybe they listened to the Bill Simmons podcast, and Bill Simmons was like, I wouldn't wait. I would just build a contender around him right now. And then they put the Spurs on their list because of that, is my guess.
I don't. I don't know. I'm not as high on Devin Vassell as a championship third man, so I don't know if necessarily it's time to go out and get someone else like that. I'm also thinking about like what the Kings package would even be. What is it? Is it like Malik Monk and like Kevin Herter, or is it like
So
Harrison Barnes?
you could get there close in terms of contracts. I think it would be Herder and Barnes is to
Mhm,
make the money work. So it's Harrison Barnes and Kevin Herder.
mhm.
My thought is that that would be the we see Kevin's trade here in the comments. Davion Mitchell is 100% expendable, I would say, in any sort of
Future
trade.
star,
Yeah,
future star.
he barely ever plays. They're very guard heavy. If they get Lavine, that's another guard. And yeah, I mean, he's just not. Despite Sam's delusions, he's not a future star by any means. But the trade package would have to look something like Barnes, Herder, and whatever else to make the money work. Davion Mitchell, Chris
Yeah.
Duarte, whatever, and then Kev wants them to throw in a first round pick. I think that they would just present them with those contracts and say, here are players. We are looking to, maybe they're looking to expand Keegan Murray's role a little bit, and they find that Harrison Barnes is a bit redundant, although that doesn't really make any sense to me. You can never have enough playable wings. And maybe they're saying we see Lavine as such a big upgrade over Kevin Herter that we're willing to give up X amount of either picks or of just contracts to make the deal work. And I just kind of think that they would say, here's Herder, Barnes, Davion Mitchell, and either take it or leave it kind of thing. Or maybe they could go the other direction and say, we'll throw in picks if you include Alex Caruso because we want defensive guys too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, and, I also just wonder, like, because I could see pretty quickly, because the problem I'm running into with, like, looking for a Kings trade here is that, like, they have all of their guys who play are kind of fucking important. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they can't really survive sending out, like, 3 rotation guys. You know what I'm saying? Like it gets pretty thin pretty fast there. So, the money actually just works with just Herder and Barnes. But I wonder if you could get like one of the other Bulls guys back with like Davion Mitchell or something like that, like Torrey Craig or someone like you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like, or maybe even Andre Drummond or just someone, another rotation guy to kind of put in there. Because I think that is like kind of the thing I would worry about if I were the Kings and I were giving up like probably a pick or at least 2 to get Zach Lavine in that situation. I think Kevin Herter's got pretty good value, or I would value. I know he had like a rough year last year, but like
no, he was good
I
last year. He just
yeah,
struggled in the playoffs. He just shot
yeah.
poorly in the playoffs. And
I
like,
think
I don't worry
yeah,
about Kevin Herter's a good shooter. Like that's the
right.
thing. Is like if I'm the Kings, that trade makes no sense to me because we
Mhm.
talked about it in the Discord earlier, and I'm like, okay, so you're taking the Kevin Herter spot and you're upgrading it to Zach Lavine. What does Zach Lavine bring you that Kevin Herter doesn't? Rim pressure. Okay, who's the
Mhm.
best rim pressure guard in the NBA right now? De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, right, right,
like you already have
right.
that guy on your team, and like it can't hurt to have multiple guys who can score at the rim and score on the outside. But this once again comes back to, what does Zach Lavine view himself as? We talked about this a little bit on the Patreon episode, and I am open to the idea of the Sixers, for example, exploring a Zach Lavine trade. If Zach Lavine calls Joel Embiid and says, hey, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it work there, I'm extremely skeptical that Zach would be willing to do that. I think Zach's an incredibly talented scorer. I think he's a good NBA player, but I also think because he's made all-star teams and because he got this massive contract, that he probably views himself as one of the two best players on an offense in terms of a contending team. And any team that he goes to, my whole pitch for him this whole time has been, can he be Klay Thompson plus? Can he be guy who's willing to come off pin downs, play off the ball, shoot off movement? Because he is one of the best catch and shoot guys in the NBA. He is a very good dynamic movement shooter. And he's also when he is willing to kind of play more off the ball, he could be a downhill threat off the ball. You could get really creative with what you could do with him. He's a vertical athlete. He can cut to the basket. I think in the ideal scenario, like I said, he is a Klay Thompson plus. But the thing is that most of these players that would fit that mold are too good to want to ever be that, which is why you always end up with a diet Klay Thompson instead, like Kevin Huerter. Like you always end up with like the lesser version of that player, because the majority of players that are good enough to be Klay Thompson want to have the ball more, and they want to be more dynamic in terms of being an offensive creator. Whereas I think the maximized version of Zach Lavine in a Sixers style, Heat style, Lakers style, Kings style would be that player. And that's, I mean, like, look, like, say what you will about Zach, but like he's had some issues with that in Chicago, but like that's deferring to DeMar DeRozan and and Vucevic. Would he have the same problems if it were LeBron James or Joel Embiid or in the Heat situation, Jimmy Butler? Like, he might be willing to take a back seat to someone who is a much, much better player than the players that he's playing with, because at the end of the day, he's just as good, if not better, than those guys in Chicago.
Yeah, we call that the Kristaps Porzingis effect. The a guy good as a number two in, like, he might be bad as a number two in one context, but in like a totally different context, he's suddenly buying in and it looks a lot better,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I get why a lot of teams are in on him. I still doubt, like, especially if all the interest that's rumored is real, I don't think the Bulls have any reason to want to make this trade quickly. I think they're going to want a bidding war, and I think they're going to want to wait until January 15th when everybody's available, to like be put in trades, and everybody can put, you can get everyone on record with like, okay, what's your best offer? And then they can kind of pick from those ones. I still don't see a Zach Lavine trade as like imminent in like the next, like, 2 months. I think it's probably going to be like, well, it's December 15th for some guys. It's January 15th for other guys.
And also keep in mind, everyone, we say this every year, and it gets to be kind of cliche, but everyone loves their team in November, except for like 3 teams.
Yes, exactly.
Like, the majority of teams are fine seeing how things play out over the course of 30 or 40 games. When it gets to the point where you're undeniably bad or undeniably mid, and the market changes over time, if Donovan Mitchell asks for a trade in a month, a lot of teams that have interest in Zach Lavine aren't going to have interest in Zach Lavine anymore. That's just the reality. Like, we know that teams are willing to potentially take a flyer on Lavine as it is right now if they are able to accept his contract for what they view as just giving up contracts that they don't necessarily want. In time, I think the market could get better for Lavine from the Bulls' perspective, and I think that all it takes really to me is one team getting desperate, as we've seen time and time again over the years. And the team that I brought up on the Patreon podcast that we just did, that I view as the most likely to be in that scenario, is the Detroit Pistons. And the reason why is because Troy Weaver's going to need to want to save his job here. And Monty Williams was the hire that they brought in to try to save this thing. It's not going well. And ultimately, in order to save the GM's job, that's what he will do. The Sixers don't have to rush. The Sixers they're tied for the best record in the NBA right now. They have the second best net rating. Everything looks like it's going swimmingly. Even the Lakers and the Heat have performed above their net rating in terms of like wins. They don't have to make a rush move by any means. I think it takes one desperate team to up the market and change the perspective, whether they're putting picks on the table or they're putting a prospect like Jaden Ivey on the table, which is what I pitched on the last episode. I think that they should be willing to go further in order to, I don't think the Pistons should do this, to be clear, but I think that is what will happen over the course of this next month or two. And then, okay, we can revisit what other teams would be willing to give up for Lavine, a player that we have said since last trade deadline, really, there's not a lot of interest in Zach Lavine around the league. That's all we've ever heard, is that teams are willing to take on the contract for free, and they're not willing to give up a lot until they have to even like compete. with another team. It's the same thing that we saw for the James Harden thing, where the Clippers were like, why are we giving up Terrence Mann again? Don't we like not have to compete against anyone else? Until that team exists, I don't see any of these teams. But in terms of just like what would be the best spot for, if I had to rank them for Zach Lavine, to me, the best spots would be if Zach were willing to buy into this ideal role that I think he should fall into. Number one for me would be the Miami Heat. Just
I
like
agree.
objectively speaking, here. Like I would hate it, but objectively speaking, the Miami Heat, he could boost their offense. He could provide some rim pressure. He could run their offense occasionally, provide spacing.
I like the fit better than the Damian Lillard one, especially if you're giving up less. You know, if you're only giving up like Tyler Hero and, you know, Jovic or Jaquez or whoever and like picks. I think that would hurt them a lot more than like the Dame package would have had to have been like Caleb Martin and like all these other guys like
picks
involved
and swaps
too.
and
Like you can just
you would have had to throw everything.
Yeah. Or, like, you could also, if they don't want Tyler Hero's money, you can also just keep Tyler Hero and you have the Kyle Lowry option too. Like, and you can just do that
if you ask Tyler Hero, he's playing at an all NBA level according to a clip that was posted.
It's so true, Bestie. I totally agree with that. Like you're so good. Do you know what the Miami Heat's point differential is right now? They're by the way, they're 8-5.
They're 8-5, and I believe they have I'm going to guess -2 is their point differential.
It's completely neutral right now. They're one of 3 teams with a completely neutral net rating. It's the Raptors, Warriors, and Heat all have a completely neutral net rating, and the Raptors and Warriors are
below
both
500.
a game or 2 games under 500 respectively. So Miami Heat once again, not a good team, but once again, just
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they're not a good team. They will have a not good point differential. They will have a terrible offense, and with Tyler Hero, they're actually worse this year net rating wise.
Did you see they started like 22-1 against the Bulls? They were up like 21.
Yeah.
1, and then they lost the game.
Yeah. Then they lost the game, and and then after this, Zach Lavine stormed off the court, and they asked him to do a post-game interview, and he stormed off the court. Now, this is the scenario where the Bulls could end up getting fucked in this trade. Is Zach Lavine storms off the court. He asked for a trade already, and the only players that I could think of in recent history that have been traded before the new year rolled around after a trade request were Jimmy Butler, who famously staged a coup in Minnesota so that in practice, so that he could get traded. And then the second one was James Harden, who also has a history of these things. Like, the Sixers knew what they were getting themselves into. They traded him a few weeks ago. If Lavine can get to the point where he can cause that much of a ruckus, he might be able to get himself onto another team faster. They win the game. He only scored like 13 points or something in that game, I think. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he didn't score a lot of points. They win the game, and he angrily storms off the court and doesn't want to do the post-game interview. So, apparently the GM and the coach were not happy about that. So that's the scenario that gets Lavine to another team. The Heat are number 1 on my list. To me, I would probably go. I'm thinking about teams that really need offensive boosts. The Heat are one of them. The Lakers are one of them. I think.
I was going to say the Lakers are probably.
I would say Lakers too, because I think both those teams have the defensive infrastructure to make up for some of Levine's shortcomings on the other end.
Agreed,
I think that his shortcomings are incredibly overrated by the media and everyone who follows the NBA. When he's locked in and he cares, he's a totally passable on-ball, good on-ball defender. And I think in the right situation, he can be a Jaylen Brown level of defender where, of course, certain things bother you about Jaylen Brown, but at the end of the day, he's totally fine. And if you have the right infrastructure around him, like he does in Boston. So there's that.
I think Jaylen Brown's a good comp for him, by the way. Like, just in terms of the level of player you're getting back. You know what I'm saying? Like, a guy who could really pop as like a second or third man, who's got very clear things he's bad at and very clear things he's good at. And you need to kind of take the good with the bad, and like it's up to the coach to like minimize the the smallest parts. So
Yeah. Okay. So I do see someone in the comments saying Jaylen Brown is the 4th or 5th best player for the Celtics now.
it's okay. We're not
If Zach Lavine gets traded to the Lakers, 1, LeBron, 2, AD, 3, the goated white boy with the sauce, Austin Reeves, 4, Zach Lavine.
Yeah, exactly. You forgot Gabe Vincent in there too.
Oh,
He
fuck.
recovers.
Playoff riser, Gabe Vincent.
Gabe Vincent, Gabe Vincent in the playoffs. He's like the muscle Doge versus the crying Doge. Like Gabe Vincent in the regular season. Oh, I hate playing in games. The Gabe Vincent in the playoffs. I will shoot 70% from 3 for some reason.
Yeah. If you can somehow acquire Zach Lavine and he can bring Pat Riley's stash with him, we all know, we've already said he's going to go to the Miami Heat and end up having like all NBA buzz by the end of the year. We know that that's probably what's going to happen. But the reality of the situation is that I think it's probably going to end up being the Lakers or Heat. And then I think that the wrinkle that gets thrown in is one of these teams gets desperate. But of the teams that are included, I would probably put the Sixers 3rd, just because if I were the Kings, I would be trying to acquire defensive talent, because I just think that their offense is going to be, if you have Sabonis, Fox, and just an inch of shooting around them, which they have a bunch of, and you can get I don't really see the fit with Pascal Siakam there, but you could get an OG Anunoby or a versatile defensive player who can space the floor on offense. I think that's the kind of guy that I would be looking for if I were Sacramento instead of a Zach Lavine type, because I just don't think he's that much better than Herter that you're going to pay him 3 times as much on his contract. And the reason why the Sixers have the number 1 offense in the NBA right now, which we're going to talk about, but there still is a level of when they face really good teams with really good defenses that I am a little bit concerned. Like you saw at times in that Boston game. Now, they didn't have Batum and Oubre, but Boston was also missing Porzingis and Jaylen Brown for that game. So, like, kind of, let's just say it's even. There are times where the offense can get a little bit bogged down. There are times where the offense is not quite as creative as you would like it to be. And there are times when the offense is going up against a really good defense that I think it could get slowed down. And adding an offensive talent like Zach Lavine to the conversation could be incredible. Cleaning the glass has the Sixers as the number 1 offense in the NBA. So that eliminates garbage time. Pacers are not first. So while the Sixers have the best offense, it's the playoffs that I really am concerned about. And I know that Maxey might end up being a better option than playoff James Harden in certain circumstances and playoff Ben Simmons, obviously. But at the end of the day, the offense is still going to be centered around Joel Embiid. And I think that as this formula has shown so far throughout the regular season, the Sixers offense with Joel, Maxey, and ball handlers / shooters around it is virtually unstoppable when things are all clicking. So that is the reason why you would trade for a Lavine. The reason why you wouldn't is all the things we've laid out. There is at least a little bit of defensive concern with him. He might not want to buy into the role. And there are guys that would be willing to buy into the role. So that's kind of how I feel about the Lavine thing. You could talk me into it either way. The feeling I get is that the Sixers aren't very interested in Zach Lavine anymore. They were interested in him 2 years ago when they had Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. But now that Maxey's the second guy, they're going to look for more defensively versatile players that can survive on offense to kind of fix the issues that they feel like they might have at the higher levels. And the other teams, like I would probably go Kings 4, Spurs 5. I don't get the move for the Spurs at all. The Spurs have the worst defense in the NBA. Like they've been bottom 3 in defense, I think. I don't see how Zach Lavine helps that situation at all. I think that they're just going to be in for a bad year, and I think that they can reassess everything after the offseason or in the offseason. I don't see a situation why you would rush that timeline unless Victor is by the All-Star break playing at like an all-NBA level and looks like one of the 10 best players in the NBA, which he hasn't so far. Then why would you really rush that whole timeline if you're the Spurs?
Yeah. And I just think, I think you hit the nail on the head. I just think the Lakers and the Heat have more need for Zach Lavine, and particularly with the Heat, they've got more to give. Like I don't see Daryl Morey like putting it all on the table for Zach Lavine,
No.
especially when his cap space plan is like perfectly like lined up right now, like destroying that.
It looks pretty
Yeah.
good. Honestly, the one thing I will say about the cap space plan is that there are guys on the Sixers that are free agents, like Batum if he decides to keep playing, and Tobias and Melton that have played so well that you're like, would you prefer to get those guys in season and have them traded into your cap space and then use bird rights to sign the other guys back next offseason on like value deals? You know what I mean?
Right.
But then again, Zach Lavine wouldn't fit that mold, really. It would probably be more like a Lauri Markkanen who's on a discount contract.
Right.
Or if you're looking for offensive talent, there are other guys out there that might fit the mold a little bit better. If you could get OG Anunoby early in a trade, which I don't think that's realistic, but I'm just saying. So why are people sending George R.R. Martin tweets into the chat?
This is my influence.
Oh, it said Bulls working on their post Thibs rebuild, and it's George R. Martin writing his writing the new book that he said has been working on for a decade.
Book. Yeah, I was gonna say I was in college when that came out. And
Yeah.
That was I'm 34 now.
I was gonna say it almost aligns with the post Thibs timeline. What did they fire Thibs in 2015?
It's older than that. It was
Yeah.
2012 was when that was when the Dance with Dragons came out. It was 2012. So
Jesus. Unbelievable. But
the virgin George R.R. Martin versus the Chad Steven Erickson.
well, we are going to have a lot of let's just say rebuilds that are not going very well that we will be talking about during the stat portion of this episode. But so far to start the year, we're going to talk a little bit about some stat stuff. Just to kind of transition off the Lavine talk. We'll definitely talk a lot more about Lavine as we get further into the season. Sign up for the Patreon where we'll probably talk about this every fucking episode because it's going to be the main slop thing if you have not already. Let's talk a little bit about stats. And since this is a Sixers podcast, I'm going to lead off with some stats about the Sixers and their insane offense so far. And now keep in mind, what did you want to call this section? Is this the calculator Rat Mendoza line thing?
This is the calculator Rat Mendoza line. But
yes.
I have a theory that 10 games is when stuff starts being normal. So like I hate talking about season stats or like where someone is in the NBA before 10 games have been played. Now that 10 games have been played, we have a big enough sample size that it's at least worth discussing. So like this is the idea behind the calculator at Mendoza line. Like this is finally when you can let loose your nasty little beasts and they come crawling out of the sewers with their grubby little mitts covered in EPM and dark and all the other like nasty bullshit they want to talk about. So now is the first time I'll hear what the rats have to say.
Yeah, exactly. Did you leave out cookies for calculator Rat Santa?
If you give it
on EPM day,
if you give a calculator Rat a LeBron, he's gonna want a Raptor.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is so EPM was released recently, so everyone's been up on their calculator Rat bullshit. If you don't know what EPM is, it's on dunksandthrees.com, which is essentially the advanced version of BPM, which is on Basketball Reference from the jump, and we can overreact to players having really good first weeks of the season as we have throughout the course of this season so far. But to start off, we're still in small sample size territory with some of the stuff that we're talking about because, like, for example, Nicholas Batum has only played 5 or 6 games for the Sixers so far. He's missed some time, but in the games that he has played, he looks incredible. He basically hasn't missed the shot, and he's making all the right decisions for the Sixers. So these Sixers net rating with Nicholas Batum in 127 minutes to start this season is a plus 30 with a 143 offensive rating, which is 20 points per 100 possessions, better than the Sixers' number 1 offensive rating according to Cleaning the Class. That means they have the most points per 100 possessions of any team in the NBA so far to start this year if you eliminate garbage time. And if you add in Nicholas Batum, that balloons to plus 143. So almost over 20 points per 100 possessions better with Nicholas Batum on the court to start this year. If you watch the games, you can understand why. He is an incredible connective piece for this offense. He is someone who is still a very good, savvy defender. He's like such a ball mover. He's really something that they have missed for a while on this team. He works well with Maxey and Embiid whether one of them is sitting or one of them is playing. The offense just keeps humming. And this stat blew my mind. This is from Cleaning the Glass that Bobcat Boris submitted in the Discord. To start the season, Nicholas Batum is adding 27.4 points per 100 possessions in the half court to the Sixers offense, just ahead of Nikola Jokic's 22.3 points per 100 added in the half court. So we look, we argued Embiid versus Jokic all last year. Should we really be arguing Jokic versus Batum?
Yeah. I just like to say this is something we all saw coming.
Yes.
We all knew when Daryl Morey said that he wouldn't trade James Harden for a star, and he made sure that he got the better player back in Nick Batum. So,
yes, yeah, arguably the Sixers' most important player, more so than Tyrese Maxey, more so than Joel Embiid. Yeah. He found the third star, folks, and everything is clicking when Nicholas Batum is on the court. So, just another quick thing before we get into one of Sam's stats here. Mm-hmm. A crazy thing about the Sixers so far to start this year, like I said, number one offense in the NBA according to Cleaning the Glass. And they are third last in the NBA in attempted three-pointers to start the year. They are basically crushing in every other department of offense. They are 10th in offensive rebounding. They get to the line more than any team in the NBA. They are also getting out in transition way more often than they have in the past. And that has led to the team being one of the best. So I actually have from Avi Wolfman Arant tweeted earlier today. They are first in free throw rate, third in percentage of shots attempted at the rim, third in turnover percentage, as in they don't turn the ball over, and they are allowing they have the second fewest possessions in the half court to start the year. So they're outrunning. They are incredibly efficient in whatever shot they get. They get to the line a ton. They get to the rim a ton. And that has led to them having the best offense in the NBA so far. Now, some of these things will kind of break even throughout the season, but this is not the Sixers are shooting the cover off the ball. The Sixers are putting up a ton of threes like a year ago we saw with the Boston Celtics. Not that the Celtics really had any offensive problems throughout the course of a regular season, but it's not things that are completely unsustainable. It will regress a little bit, but I don't think this is going to come down to the Sixers not having a top 5 offense by the end of the year. I think they're clearly a top 5 offense in the NBA, and I think over the course of this season, it will prove to kind of sustain itself as long as they have Embiid, Maxey, and the most important Sixer, Nicholas Batum. So, yeah, it's been incredible start to the year for the Sixers, and I can't believe Ben Taylor, if you haven't seen it, Ben Taylor did a whole video on this on his Thinking Basketball page where he did how Nurse has kind of revolutionized the offense for the Sixers, using Embiid more like Jokic outside of the paint and using Maxey and Tobias as downhill threats in the offense. If you haven't checked that out, go to his Thinking Basketball page and watch that video because it really shows just how much more advanced the Sixers have been with a real head coach and not Doc Rivers at the helm. So do you have any stats that you would like to list? Or I have like 100. So if you have one you want to throw out there.
Yeah, say I've got a pretty sizable chunk. I'm gonna leave out some of this. So what I did was I looked at guys with a negative VORP, and I looked at guys who have 25% usage or higher. And
can I guess how many players it is?
Yes, guess how many players it is that have 25%. There's actually 3. There's a third one.
All right, I'll get the first 2 easily. Not even a question. Caden Poole.
Yes. Yes.
Cade and Poole are the obvious ones. Is the
Yes.
third one Andrew Wiggins?
The third one is Andrew Wiggins. No, wait, sorry, no, not Andrew Wiggins. He is the other one who is at negative almost half a game. The top three worst in VORP are Wiggins, Poole, and Cunningham in that order. But the third one is Jordan Clarkson, who's only at like -2, but he has a 27% usage. The other one that I forgot, but he's played less minutes, is Kuminga, has 26.9. And a negative point differential. So I'm just saying, if a guy's usage is that high and the returns have been this bad, like where are people arguing that Jordan Poole just needs like to be in the right system to kind of put it all together? I'm just like, what are we missing? Because Jordan Poole has more of a history of being a positive NBA player than Cade Cunningham does. Like,
so first off, Poole is definitely swaggier. He's definitely got more of Poole has been terrible for sure this year.
Okay, but here's the other thing: is Poole. I'm watching Poole is like just yelling at his teammates, not looking at plays. So that makes sense. Cade is ostensibly trying his best and is still doing this bad. So is that good or bad? Because it seems worse to me, to be honest.
Zach Cram from The Ringer wrote a whole article on this today, and it's something that we've talked a lot about with Cade over the course of why we're not as high on him as a lot of the draft Twitter people, a lot of the nerds around the NBA are, because our whole thing from the jump with this is if you have a primary creator who does not get to the rim often, and when he does get to the rim, he gets rejected more than any player in the NBA. 25% of his layups have been swatted at the rim this year, according to Zach Cram's article. When you get a player who cannot finish around the rim because he lacks explosion, when you get a player who doesn't get to the line often because of the inability to draw fouls due to the lack of explosion we've talked about, his inability to create separation, when you have a player who is shooting below 30% from three again in his career, when you have a player who is only focused on a mid-range diet of shots, turns the ball over way too much, your offense is just going to be bad no matter who you put that player around. Like, that is, some of this is context. Some of this is he has shit shooting around him. He has all this. But if you remove Cade from the floor, the Pistons have a better offense than when he is on the floor. You can try any matchup that you wanted in terms of on-offs. You can add Killian Hayes in there. You can remove Killian Hayes. You can add Jaden Ivey. You can remove Jaden Ivey. The Pistons never have a good offense when Cade is on the floor. The Pistons offense is 10 points per 100 possessions better when Cade sits. Now, maybe part of that is, well, maybe they're getting out and running more. Okay, well, that's not great. If you have the way to change something to make your offense better, like the Toronto Raptors have proven with Nick Nurse, they always did all those years, you should probably do it. That's low-hanging fruit stuff that you should be able to do. When you remove him from the floor, they get to the line more. They shoot about the same from 2-point percentage and 3-point percentage. There is no way to get it so that the numbers agree with you that the Pistons are better. Now, if you want to say, look at the tape and say, okay, everyone's just clogging the paint, there's no way he can get to the rim, there's no way he can draw fouls, he's going to turn the ball over more. Okay, fine. That's totally fair. It still doesn't have me buying in on the idea that Cade can one day be a primary creator when all of these flaws in his game continue to pop up, and this is just not a small sample now. We're in year 3. He didn't play much last year, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But now we're how many games in? 13 games in for the Pistons. And I see people talking about trading Jaden Ivey, and I'm like, what are we not getting here?
Yeah.
What are we not understanding? Because to me, it's like what Zach wrote in his article is basically what we've been saying this whole time, which is that if Cade's 3-point percentage, which by the way, he shoots 32% on wide open threes in his career, that is not good. Yeah, if his 3-point percentage can get better, he basically explained in this article, maybe he could have the Lonzo archetype in his career, where he is a secondary creator who is a passing savant and can be a spot up 3-point shooter and can be a connective piece. And that's the path that he needs to kind of go down now. And the reality is that every few months we lower the bar a little bit lower. And like, there's no context in which a guy at 22 years old hasn't shown that he could be a primary creator at all. Yeah. Like there's no primary creation equity with this dude.
It's really bad. Like we all giggled in T-Heat about like how bad Jordan Poole was going to be, and he is bad. Jordan Poole also has ostensibly less talent on his Wizards squad than Cade has with the Pistons. Like
Jalen Duren, I think they have the two worst rosters in the NBA.
But they've got Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren, who he like plays with. There's nobody on the Wizards even close to either of those other two guys. Like who would you even say? Like Corey Kispert, maybe. I guess, yeah. He's like, I think Duren's better, and I think Thompson's better, but yeah, I think they're. I just think I don't know. I think that they're like the Wizards were like trying to be bad. The Pistons are ostensibly trying to be good, and have like young players they can try out and do some of this stuff. I don't know. I think it's bad. I'm willing to. I've not seen the Cade thing. I was very polite for a long time, but we're quickly approaching the amount of. I think they've got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I think, by the way, I think that would be better for Cade's career, for him to go somewhere else. I think we've hit that point already. Like,
well, they're not going to trade him. Like, that's just the reality. It's like,
but they won't.
So we're in year 3.
Yeah.
We have a situation where he's overextended as a primary creator. They kind of need one of these dudes to really pop in order to, which is why even like everyone keeps saying, well, he doesn't fit with Jaden Ivey. And it's like, well, the Pistons are better with Jaden Ivey on the court than they are with Cade Cunningham. Like that's the problem, is that like everyone keeps saying he doesn't fit. And it's like, well, if he doesn't fit with this other player you drafted who hasn't by any means been like amazing. But by the way, if you compare his stats to a 21-year-old De'Aaron Fox to this point in his career, they're almost identical. And De'Aaron Fox has made himself into one of the 15, 20 best players in the NBA.
How about this? How about Cade outplays Marcus Sasser first? I'm like serious. Marcus Sasser is better than either of those guys right now. Like, so maybe Jaden Ivey gets better. I don't think Cade's ever going to be better than Marcus Sasser is right now. I'm serious. I'm willing to go there.
I mean, here's the thing. It's the same thing that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. The overextension, the crowning too early, all that shit. Like, I'm willing to give a young player time, but we need to readjust our expectations. Like, we did the 25 best players under 25 not too long ago, and he was 6 on the list. Like, it's just setting him up for failure at this point, because he is not a primary engine. And until they get a guy who is at least the level of, which is why I think they need to keep taking the cracks on this over the course of the next whatever few weeks, months, to see if they can make one of these guys stick as the primary creator. And we talked about the Pistons trading potentially for a Zach Lavine. I think trading Jaden Ivey for Zach Lavine would be a very stupid move. I think that either in the draft, with the Pistons being one of the worst teams in the NBA, or somehow via trade or free agency, they need to be swinging for guys that are of a higher echelon of number one. If they were now this is never going to happen, but just in theory, if they were able to get in on the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes next summer, that like Mitchell is a primary creator that you could put with a Cade to make that situation passable. Putting Lavine with him, another guy who is not kind of, when he runs an offense, it doesn't look great. When he's a secondary piece, it can look really good. I think that has potential to be disaster. So like, if I'm the Pistons and I'm married to Cade, I'm looking to get a legit primary creator to try to salvage this situation instead of trying for a bunch of guys who I view as like other flawed primary creator types. So it's hard to find those guys. There's a reason why they never become available. And I think it's going to be a long road for the Pistons, but like basically every stat and every number tells you that in terms of high usage guys, it can't get much worse than the situation with Cade and the Pistons right now. And it's not to say that it's a completely unsalvageable situation, but now I think that you need to start operating under the fact that Cade isn't a number one, and how can we find that number one? That's where I'm at with the Pistons. So, let's see who else submitted some stats here for this episode. Okay, I'll wait for the Sixers propaganda again because we already did a Sixers one. But how about this? Signs for concern potentially. Ransom in the Discord submitted Zion being inefficient this year. Currently is 27th percentile for his position at the rim. Seems pretty bad. He currently has a career low 54.8 true shooting. I looked this up. 54.8. That is 10% lower than his last two seasons that he has played in terms of true shooting. And his efficiency field goal percentage is at 52.7 to start the year as well. So another shocking stat, he is currently 7th worst for anyone who drives at least 10% a game, and he's shooting 40% on those drives, which I actually believe that is worse than Cade Cunningham for Zion so far to start this year. So that's not great.
That's not good. Yeah, that is not good.
It's not good. Like, one of the things with I will say with the Pistons and the Pelicans is that their whole team is Nate submitted this. Cade's at 43% on drives in terms of percentage scoring. So that's not good for Zion so far to start this year. I'm willing to give Zion a little bit of benefit of the doubt only because we've seen Zion be dominant in the NBA before in a way that we have never seen with Cade. But the Pelicans and the Pistons both have a ton of injury issues to start this year. But there are at least some signs in Zion's stats, and honestly, when you watch him a little bit, that he might have lost half a step and that he might not be operating at the level that he was at athletically a year or two ago. And even before that, he was a crazy athlete. And he kept finding himself getting injured. But I think that we might be to the point where those things are kind of catching up with him.
Yeah. It's certainly not. And the Pelicans, by the way, I mean, they're always a billion times injured, but they're like not good this year. Like, it sounds like they might be it's looking like early returns. They might be the casualty of the West being good, so.
And also CJ McCollum being out, Trey Murphy being out. I think Matt Ryan got injured. I'm like, everyone in their rotation is dying. Larry Nance is out for 6 weeks. And I know the Pistons have similar problems, but the Pelicans have like legit talent and depth that I thought that they could have been, top 5 seed in the West.
Yeah. Yeah. They can't get their guys. They still can't get their guys healthy, but like Zion not looking good is alarming. Like, this is quickly entering a phase where, did you miss your window to trade Zion? Because I don't think packages that will be offered for Zion today would be ones that David Griffin could even like consider.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think anybody would offer him like real stuff for Zion. And I don't know. They've got a no way out but through for the Pelicans right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think they're gonna have a chance to pull the plug. I think what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to. They might be a panic trade candidate. You know what I'm saying? They might be a team that's willing to overpay for like a Zach Lavine or someone like that, like come the trade deadline if things aren't looking good. So,
dude, their team is insane because it's been they traded for CJ McCollum 2 seasons ago. Almost 2 calendar years to this point that it has been a 2-year anniversary. And they have Zion, Ingram. Someone can look up how many games they played together. Zion, Ingram, and CJ, but I would be willing to bet it's less than 15 games. And they have played, maybe 20 games. I can't imagine it's been a lot of games that they have played together. It was less than 12 before this season, and then CJ got hurt. And Ingram was out a little bit earlier in this year too. They have barely played any. So the thing about the Pelican situation is like, it feels as though they might not be able to have enough of any availability with these guys to know what they should do. Because, by the way, Brandon Ingram is contract extension eligible right now, and he hasn't signed one because he's been kind of up and down with the injuries and with the availability and all that shit. CJ getting hurt adds another wrinkle on top of that, and Zion not being this, like, if he's not the level of player that he was MVP candidate good at 22 years old, and now he's 23, and now he's been injured more, and we've had question marks about, like, does he even give a shit because maybe he doesn't want to be in New Orleans, or maybe he just doesn't really care about basketball that much. I don't know how much. I don't want to give too much claim, like, validity to that, because I just don't really know how much it is true. I don't really know anything about his personal life, but I kind of think the fact that, like you said, like, now you're getting to the point where, like, maybe you miss your window to trade Zion if he ever were to have like really good trade value, or maybe this whole thing just isn't going to work because no one's ever fucking healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just more what I meant. You know what I'm saying? I think the Pelicans had a real window to kind of, they have so many assets, just kind of roll their timeline back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And, like, get things more lined up, because nobody was selling. There's still not really anyone selling, which is kind of, it's just the Bulls basically, like, on the horizon. And I think that until expansion happens, I think that might be a feature in the league. I think the league is too good, and teams are going to be looking around like, look at all the fucking NBA players we have. We're definitely, we should be good. But then you get out there and it's like, fuck, we're 6-8. You know what I'm saying? Like, Warriors are 6-8. Like, and you know, like, this is just like what happens, like, when you've got this kind of insane parity. And so, like, you know, I don't think they're quite as, like, fucked as, like, the Pistons. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just need to get everything, like, together and get, like, everything squared away. But it's definitely not good. It's definitely not good. So
it's not good, and they are seemingly cursed. Having said that, they still have so much, and I know people are probably getting fucking sick of hearing this, because it's every year with the Pelicans where everyone's like, but just look at their talent. But it's true. Like, look at the team. Dyson Daniels has had a really good year, by the way. Dyson Daniels has been looking good for them. Herb Jones is, like, my buddy Andrew, who's a big Pelicans fan, said in the 3 games since he's returned from injury, he has 10 blocks and 5 steals against the Timberwolves, Nuggets, and Mavericks. Like, Herb Jones is 100% a guy. They've added spacing with Jordan Hawkins and Matt Ryan so far. They have Trey Murphy coming back, who's one of the better 3-and-D guys in the league. Like, if they can ever get healthy and ever get right, it feels like they still have the potential to me. And none of it matters if Ingram and Zion aren't the players we thought they were. That's what it, like, to me, like, it comes down to, they show a lot of kind of potential to be a scrappy playoff team. But if those guys aren't the level that they should be, they're not going to be contenders, is what I'm getting at here. We always thought that this was going to be a contendership window for the Pelicans, and I just don't really know if that is the case. So we'll see. We'll see with the Pelicans. I'm still in wait and see mode. I really want to see this team get healthy, because I think that this team, when healthy, could help Zion's numbers. It could help kind of where their team goes from here. But just from the eye test and the early stats, it's definitely concerning with Zion. Like I said, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and that I'm in a way that I'm not with other players, because I've seen him play at a high level, but it's not for extended periods. And with his injury history, like I said it on stream the other night, like, he could just be another Larry Johnson, who was a hyper athletic player, incredibly good young player that made all-star teams and then just got injured and was never quite the same. So we'll see with the Pelicans, but early returns, not great so far. So do you have any other stats that you wanted to pump out?
Yes. So I'm going to run through. I have Basketball Reference sorted by total rebound percentage. Okay. So this is how high people rebounding on the floor are. Okay. So everyone, I like doing this and going down the list, filtering out centers and power forwards. And a lot of the power forwards, like 14 is Victor Wembanyama, who's a power forward. He's a center. Evan Mobley's a power forward. He's a center at 17, you know. So you get down to, I'm gonna list you the third third, second, and fourth. I'm going to go top 5. Okay, top 5 guys that aren't power forwards or centers in terms of offensive, or in terms of this rebound percentage going up. Okay, so I'm going to read you the list, and I want you to guess the top guy. Okay, so at 49 we have Josh Hart. This is all the guys top 50. Josh Hart is 49. Westbrook's 47. Luka is 46. Torrey Craig is 42. Then you got to go a ways up to get to Scotty Barnes, who they say is a shooting guard, but he's really kind of a small forward, power forward.
Sure.
He's 37. We've got Jalen Johnson, my guy, at 35.
He's been good this year.
Who's been really good. Then you go up to Michael Porter Jr., who is 32. Everyone above this is a power forward or center, mostly centers, except for the number 10 person, who is a small forward. Who is the number 10?
It's Asar Thompson.
It is Asar Thompson.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking impressive. And that's something I'm definitely keeping an eye on. Like, that is a wild... I know the Pistons are weird, but it's not like the Pistons don't have good rebounders. You know what I'm saying? They're actually like a huge fucking team. And the fact that he's getting rebounds on that team is really impressive. You go over to EPM and you look at his the what do you call it? The defensive like basically they have all his stuff sorted out by percentages, right? In terms of like what percentage he is. He's 94th percentile in offensive rebounds as a small forward, which is insane. He's 85th percentile in defensive rebounds, which is also pretty fucking impressive. He's 89th percentile in block percentage, where he's 4.4.
Yeah.
Like, all of this stuff to say his true shooting, he is 7th percentile, and his effective field goal percentage, he is 8th percentile.
Yeah.
So he is like a dog shit offensive player, but as a young wing, that doesn't really bother me that much. And I think that he kind of projects as like at worst, really, really good, like, defensive wing. And I think he's got like real upside as kind of a creator guy. Like,
I love
just
what,
in terms of,
I love what Nate commented on there, which is that he's Josh Hart with Anthony Edwards' athleticism. Like, he's
exactly.
essentially a super role player that we've talked a lot about the Pistons and kind of what their team makeup can be. I do think that with a team that is built as weirdly as they are, and part of the reason why people have been wanting to give Cade kind of benefit of the doubt is because Asar's not a floor spacer. I think a player like Asar can give you the opposite effect, where you could build your team in a really unique way, where you can have this forward that just creates a ton more possessions for you on the glass. And we saw with what Nick Nurse was able to do with the Raptors, where if you and the Knicks right now, the Knicks are another team that just creates a ton of opportunities with rebounds, that even if your offense isn't the best offense, if you get a ton of cracks at shit, like when you have a special offensive rebounder like Asar Thompson or like Josh Hart or someone in that mold, Mitchell Robinson for the Knicks, who we'll talk about in a second, the amount of extra possessions you create, the amount of chances that you create for your dog shit offense to get up to league average is so much higher when you have those dudes on the court. And one of the things that I worry with the way that the Pistons have been building the roster is, like, how do you balance the spacing with that? And then also, how do you balance the fact that, like, Duren is a really good vertical spacing big, but he's not like a 3-point shooter. And you would hope to fit Asar with a 3-point shooting big so that he could be the most maximized version of what he can be, essentially, is what I'm trying to get down at here. Because I think that he's going to be at worst a super role player. And at best, if he can ever develop any semblance of a shot, someone said to me that he could be basically Andre Iguodala 2.0. And that would be really awesome kind of outcome for him. And I just think that as we move into like teams that really prioritize, and I love Duren, this is not Duren slander at all, but teams that really prioritize bigs who can shoot might be key for unlocking guys that have some shooting problems that are not on ball guys, is what I'm talking about here. So like teams like OKC have prioritized this. The Jazz have prioritized this. You might be able to get away with playing guys that have shooting deficiencies that are good at everything else if your big can shoot threes. And we'll see if that is what happens. Maybe Duren could develop that at some point. I'm not super optimistic about that, but maybe the key to unlocking some stuff for the Pistons is getting a backup spacing big that you can split Thompson's minutes with, and he can be hyper productive in that role.
Yeah. I just that just blew me away when you like just sort the rebound percentage and you've got to scroll and scroll and scroll to get to another non-center power forward to get another guy who, because what I wanted to do was I thought Jason Tatum's done a good job rebounding this year, and I was looking for Jason Tatum like on there, and he's not there. But who is Asar Thompson? So once again, I knew he was better than Amen. Once again, my scouting doesn't lie. I'm one of the best scouts in the NBA.
Let's go.
So once again,
so far the worst twin theory has worked for Asar. It has worked for Caleb Martin. It has not worked for Jalen McDaniels, and it has not worked for Chris Murray, who was just sent down to the G League again at 23.
Did work for the Morrises.
It did. At one point, Marcus was seen as the shitty twin, right?
Yes. And he had the better career, I would argue. So,
well, certainly he's killing it for the Sixers right now.
Yeah.
You know how I talked about Batum, the Sixers being 33 points better with Batum on? It's the exact opposite for Marcus Morris. It's a 30-point swing in the negative direction for 100 possessions.
Let's go.
And also, I do just want to point out my whole thing about Asar being kind of this jack of all trades role player hyper athlete, and how getting a spacing big can help guys who have shooting limitations. Brian has pointed out in the comments, just like how Porzingis has helped out a bad shooter like Jason Tatum this season.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. I'm glad you were brave enough to say it. By the way, speaking of Jason Tatum, this stat has nothing to do with Jason Tatum, but it does have something to do with a player who is one spot ahead of Jason Tatum on EPM, and that is Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey, number 10 in the NBA in EPM, ahead of Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Paul George, Kevin Durant. so far, so good. Devin Booker, I believe, too, or he might be somewhere in that range as well. But so far this year, this fucking blew my mind. We talked about last week how good the Sixers offense has been with Maxey on the court and Joel off the court, which has never been the case. The Sixers always fall apart whenever Joel goes to the bench. This is the first year where they are cruising in the non-Joel minutes in a way that they never have before. Maxey is not only shooting, this is from Gabriel in the Discord. By the way, shout out to Gabriel. He's been doing a lot of cool stuff in the UW Discord, creating a bunch of stat bots for us that we have been super useful, and it's been awesome. So Gabriel in the Discord posted, this year when Joel Embiid is off the court, Tyrese Maxey is shooting 12% better than league average, and he is scoring at the highest volume of any player in the NBA.
Wow.
So basically when I'm not even exaggerating, the numbers that Maxey has put up to start this year, keep in mind, they run a lot more when Joel sits. Not all of this is in the half court, obviously, because they like to get out and run and do the Nick Nurse things that we've talked about before on the podcast with Maxey. And he's one of the best transition players in the NBA. But he's essentially scoring at like a MVP Steph Curry level of efficiency and volume scoring. So when I told you a year and a half ago that Maxey is Steph Curry, I was not lying. And as Will pointed out, expect to hear sometime in the next month on Bill Simmons or other podcasts, can Maxey and Embiid fit together?
Let's go.
Because of this. The Boston Media Mafia is cooking up something special for this one, baby.
Yeah, let's go. Let's fucking go.
But yeah, so the Sixers have been insanely good with Joel off the court for the first time ever, and that's largely in part due to the fact that Maxey has been an insane scorer whenever Embiid sits. And in yesterday's game against the Brooklyn Nets, proved to be a pretty good distributor, had another 10 assist game, had 8 assists in the first half, made some passes we've never seen him have. So the Maxey leap is real, it's strong, and it's my friend. Tyrese Maxey better, sadly. All NBA votes for him this year, please. Thank you. Thank you if you're listening and you are a voter. So, all right. Do you have any other stats you want me to pop one?
I'm looking at. I'm trying to find my other one. So you do one more, but I do have another one. I'm trying to figure out the wording on it. But you
okay?
Go ahead.
So we talked a little bit about Mitchell Robinson's rebounding. The Knicks are currently first in both offensive and defensive rebounding. Do you know how many offensive rebounds per game Mitchell Robinson is averaging this season?
I know Mitchell Robinson's number, like his rebounding stats are like fucking insane. So I'm gonna guess, is it 14?
No, offensive rebounds, not
offensive rebounds. I'm gonna guess 6.
Exactly 6.
Yes.
He's averaging 6 offensive rebounds a game, which, by the way, is more than he's averaging on the defensive end. He's averaging 5.6 defensive rebounds. He's averaging more offensive rebounds than defensive rebounds to start this season, which has created, it's the thing that we always talk about with Jesus Christ. I just looked up Moses Malone because I knew Moses Malone was a good offensive rebounder. Yeah. Do you know how many he had in one season? Just
total or average?
Total.
I'm gonna guess he had 300.
He had 587 rebounds.
Oh my God.
And by the way, fun fact, if you divide that by 82 games, which I'm assuming he played 82 games in that season. Yes, he did. Which that breaks down to 7.1 offensive rebounds per game. So Mitchell Robinson is only averaging 1 less rebound per game than Moses Malone when he won MVP in 1981 and 1982 and broke the NBA record for the most offensive rebounds in a season. So Mitchell Robinson, if you look at this list of most offensive rebounds ever in a season, Mitchell Robinson is going to, if he keeps on this pace, he's probably not going to play 82 games. But just if he keeps on this pace, the only players ahead of him are going to be Rodman once, and then Moses Malone 4 times. So Mitchell Robinson is potentially one of the 5 best offensive rebounders in the history of the NBA.
He's been really good. He actually really impressed me in the Celtics game too.
Yeah, he's owned you. I told you he was good.
Yeah, he's owned me. He's owned me pretty good. I've watched. They played the Knicks twice, and he's been really good at like getting out on Kristaps Porzingis. Like that did not bother him at all. So
yeah,
really, really impressive stuff for Mitchell Robinson, who has, and he has indeed owned me. So I have to. It's not, the NBA season hasn't started unless I'm wrong about something to do with the Knicks. So we got to get started.
Exactly. Well, speaking of the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we talked about drives earlier. The player who is scoring the least amount of times, has the lowest field goal percentage on drives this season is Jalen Brunson, is currently shooting 33.7% on drives. That will balance out some, I'm sure. Having said that, that's kind of where, if that regresses positively, he's shooting the shit out of the ball to start the year. Jalen Brunson, you could be potentially looking at a guy that could be in all-star, all-NBA buzz if that balances out a little bit, because he historically has been a very good scoring guy on drive. So I think that will balance out a little bit. But the Knicks offense, it doesn't look pretty. It kind of can look terrible at times, especially when Randall and Barrett and Robinson and Hart are all out there. But it's effective. It's essentially this Moneyball thing that we've been talking about, where like they hired a bunch of analytics guys and they tripled down on rebounding, and because of that, they're able to hang with the best teams in the NBA. Like, I think they're going to be a nightmare matchup for the Sixers, even though I think the Sixers are a way better team. I just think that they are able to, someone called it boulder ball. It's just like throwing rocks. And they make every game a rock fight. It's why they're able to hang with the Celtics. It's why they're able to hang with the Sixers. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up getting a top 5 seed in the East again because of it. So,
yeah.
Okay, so Casey saying in the comments, why don't the Knicks trade Lavine for Barrett? Addition by subtraction. Barrett's been really good this year.
He's been good this year, unfortunately. He's
been much better than Zach Lavine. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm I'm willing to wait out guys who have not proven it to me before. I won't give the benefit of the doubt. Guys who have proven it before in the NBA, I will give the benefit of the doubt. Having said that, his free throw percentage and his 3-point percentage is the highest of his career. If those things maintain, even if he dips a little bit, he's shooting over 40% from three, and he's shooting like in the 80s from the line. He was like a 60% free throw shooter a few years ago. What we might need to be doing here is giving a huge apology to Drew Hanlon, who has worked with RJ Barrett on his shot, who has worked with all of the MVP candidates, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, and then he works with Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton. Like, he seemingly knows what he's doing and has been, all of his clients have been really, really good this year. So interesting. Oh, he also works with Lavine. Funny enough, but yes. But yeah, RJ Barrett might be owning us. I'm willing to give it. I'm willing to take it to the 40 or 50 game mark with RJ before I take an L. But so far he's been real good. And if the shot maintains, he's just a good player. And Bontemps talked about this in his preseason when they were ranking all the best young players. He basically said, if he can shoot, he's good, and if he can't shoot, he's not good. So we'll see if this shot is real or it's a Mickey Mouse sample, as SH is saying in the comments. So,
okay, I've got one for you. Okay, I want you to name this player. For qualified players, number 1 in turnover percentage, fewest turnovers. Number 2 in true shooting percentage with 72.4. And the highest small forward VORP in the NBA. They consider LeBron a power forward, which is where he normally plays, who's third. But this is the number 1 small forward in the NBA in VORP, just ahead of DeMar DeRozan, who is and Jalen Johnson, who are a little bit lower. So who would you like to guess this player?
All right, small forward.
Lowest turnover percentage, second highest true shooting in the NBA. Mark Williams is number 1, the center.
Okay. So he's a small forward who I'm assuming is shooting the shit out of the ball to start the year. And does he play in the East or West?
He plays in the East.
I really have no idea. Give me one more hint.
Okay. He's a bench player, but has really come along.
I'm gonna just. Oh, is it Dylan Brooks?
It is not Dylan Brooks.
Oh no, you said East.
You said East. Yep. It is Sam Hauser of the Boston Celtics.
Fucking bastard. I can't believe you slipped in fucking Sam Hauser. He didn't make us. I think he made 1 3 in the Sixers game, and I was like, oh, so this dude isn't real. And then has been.
He's a flamethrower, man.
What is he shooting from 3 to start the year?
He was over 50. Let me take a look here. I mean, his 3-point rate is 90. Like 90% of his shots are threes.
So new Duncan Robinson just dropped. Basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's essentially what he is. He's a good Duncan Robinson. His 3-point, he's actually only 12th. He's 47.5, right in between Matt Ryan and Jalen Brunson. So,
I mean, that's still only at 47.5. And how many threes per game does he shoot?
He shoots 6.2
in bench minutes.
In bench minutes, yeah.
So he's gonna shoot. He probably shoots what 13 or 14 per 100 possessions. Maybe even more. He might shoot 15 per 100 possessions.
I can tell you right now, he is 5th in the NBA per 100, 14.3. Only Bogdan Bogdanovic, Buddy Hield, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Steph shoot.
Well, your Buddy Hield's been kind of not good to start the year. So your Buddy Hield, Sam Hauser take from the summer or from a few weeks ago might age well. And I don't want to give you credit because Buddy Hield's been one of the greatest shooters in NBA history, and I'm sure over time he'll balance out or whatever. I don't even know what he's shooting to start the year, to be honest. But I've seen Pacers fans get very mad at him, so I'm assuming he's not shooting well.
Yeah.
Having said that, this is part of the reason why I was never worried about the Celtics' depth, quote unquote, because it's so once you have. First off, the thing about the Celtics that drives me so insane is that everyone's like, well, Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis are out. And I'm like, okay, you're going to play some shitters for sure. Svi's going to play some more minutes. He sucks. Like, you're going to play some guys that aren't good, but you're also going to play Derek White and Drew Holiday, who can capably run an offense for a few possessions. And you're also going to play when other guys are out of the lineup, you just always have someone that can be at least an above average table setter on your team to run an offense through a little bit. And to find the guys that float around those dudes is the easiest thing in the world. And like when everyone's healthy, he's what, your seventh man? Like that's nothing. Like that's the easiest archetype of player to find, is just like a seventh man who can survive. And he's been better than that. He's been, like you said, like his defense. He's been the
Celtics' fourth best player behind Derek White, Tatum, and Porzingis. He's been better than Drew and Jaylen to start the year. Well, I don't know if that'll resume, but he's been very good.
Did you watch the end of the Grizzlies game last night?
I did not. I went to sleep. To sleep at the end of the Grizzlies game. But.
So I was up watching that game, and the Grizzlies were like, Bane and Santi Aldama were like just fucking hooping, and they ended up costing them at the end of the game because they're. By the way, I like Desmond Bane a lot. I think he's an awesome player. I think if he's your third best player, you're going to be really good. His self-creation at the end of that game was comically bad. Like I can see why they have offensive struggles without Ja so much, because Bane is trying to create, and he's like got this old man game where he almost lost his handle, and he tried to hit a step back and he completely airballed it.
Yeah.
And Aldama tried to do a behind the back pass and turned it over. It was just a disaster. So one of the things is, it's so funny that you guys replaced Smart with Drew Holiday, because one of the things that I think that people always got mad at Smart about was just brain farts in general. Like, he had a lot of brain farts. And last night at the end of the game, Tatum passes Drew the ball, and instead of just like dribbling around to run off clock, he tries to dunk it, and JJJ almost blocks it. He hits it off the back of the rim, and the Grizzlies get a shot at a chance to win the game in that game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember who was out for the Celtics in that game. I'm not sure if everyone was full strength, but it was just funny to me that I was like, you basically replaced Smart with a different version of Smart.
Yeah.
In Drew.
They're the same player. I've watched them both. They're essentially the same player. Smart has more of an instinct for passing, and Drew will be more solid on defense. Like, Smart would gamble more than Drew will, but like, they are essentially the same player.
I'm looking at Drew's stats right now, and they literally just look like Smart stats.
Yes.
He's averaging 13 points a game, 5 assists, 7 rebounds on 43-35 splits. And I'm like, that is basically smart. Yes.
I mean, which is fine, because you traded Smart for Porzingis. You know what I'm saying? It's not like if they traded Smart for Holiday, I'd be furious. But like, this is like the guy you got to like supplement that. But yeah,
and you got fucking 3 contracts of guys who are always injured.
Yeah, we loved doing that. Well, the Marcus Smart one, we knew that he was hurt, and we knew that Rob Williams was hurt. Matt Ryan, who summer camped with us, we put the delayed bomb in him.
Yes, thank you.
So he would get hurt again.
Thank you.
Pretty much, if you think
Max
about
Strus, watch out.
This is a stat I want to tell you right now. Every person who's played for the Boston Celtics and played more than 3 seasons in the NBA, they've missed games and gotten hurt.
Well, that's true. And also, if we get to the deadline and all of a sudden Sam Hauser's name is floated around in trade rumors, don't trade with the Celtics anymore, guys. Please stop helping them.
Used car salesman shit.
No!
They're like Matilda's dad in the Matilda movie.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, just Danny DeVito pouring sawdust in the fucking engine. Yeah.
The father of Tommy DeVito, Giants starting quarterback.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tommy DeVito, winning NFL quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, ruining the Giants' chances of getting a franchise quarterback next year. I love when teams do this.
Thank you so much.
Football rocks so much to me, because in basketball, we're like the Mavericks last year, they were like, just don't play the starters, and everyone was like, I mean, it makes sense. Like, they have a top 10 protected pick. They can keep the pick if they tank here, will make their team better in the long run, whatever. Football teams are like the complete opposite, where they're like, oh, we're 1-15. We're going to try so hard to fuck up our pick in this last week so that we can avoid getting the pick that could potentially change our franchise. Although I guess if you look at it as the way that the Texans did it, the Texans ended up with the second pick and they ended up with the better quarterback.
The karma. That's the karma thing. You get rewarded for being ethical. Unless you're the Bulls, because God hates you.
Yes.
The Bulls should have gotten Wemby. I would redo it.
Well, the Bulls should have went back in time and listened to us and tried to tank for Wemby. Now they're tanking. They're going to end up tanking in a non-Wemby year and get some mid dude who doesn't matter at all.
They should have They should have beat the Heat, and then they would have gone to the finals and lost to the Nuggets.
Wow, that's actually. Yeah, if we women with the time machine. Sure, you my grandmother.
Men with a time machine.
You know ball with a time machine.
Zach Lavine, you have to get inside Nikola Jokic or the Bulls will lose this title.
Hold on. No, it's actually even better. DeMar DeRozan, please let your daughter go to the game in Miami.
Yeah.
DeMar, I think someone literally might have tweeted this at me.
Yes.
During the playoffs last year.
Oh my God, dude.
But, okay, so fun fact for you.
Mm-hmm.
The Milwaukee Bucks, who have been better recently, still their net ratings trending a little bit not great, but they've been better recently. They won some games. They've gotten some quality wins under their belt. Mm-hmm. Their net rating with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the court and Damian Lillard off the court is a +13. Okay? Get ready for it.
Let's go.
Their net rating with Damian Lillard on the court is and Giannis off the court is a +1.8.
Okay.
Can you guess what their rating is with both of them on the court?
It's got to be like -13 or something.
It's like -7.7 per 100 possessions.
Let's go.
They currently, when Giannis and Dame both share the court, they have a 108 offensive rating, which is
worse in the NBA probably.
It would be one of the worst in the NBA, if not the worst in the NBA. So their offense, when both of those guys have played so far, has been very bad. Part of that is at least due to the fact that they're just shooting from shit like three.
It would be 28th in the NBA, by the way.
28th in the NBA.
Yeah, only the Bulls and Blazers worse.
It will balance out a little bit. They're shooting 29% from three in those 220 minutes. But early returns on this trade is that they have competed better recently. They still have some issues on the defensive end, and they have not figured out this pairing yet. Mm-hmm. And I still... I know the record says they're better, and I watch the games, and they look better than they did early in the season when Adrian Griffin was on his bozo bullshit. Mm-hmm. But I'm still, they don't look like a contender to me. They just feel like they have these flaws that are pretty massive. The defensive shit can pop out from time to time, and the lack of depth on this team is a real thing. They're playing Andre Jackson Jr. real minutes, and Andre Jackson Jr. is an older rookie, so he might be able to play, but he can't shoot. The defense is good, but he can't shoot, and they want to use him as a connective piece. And to start the year in a limited sample, he's turning the ball over. He has the highest turnover percentage of any player in the NBA at 30%. And if you want to try to use this guy in a connective role, he's got to be much more efficient as a passer than that.
Yeah.
So sometimes that can be a good thing, and it can balance out over the course of a season where guys are trying to make more advanced reads and they're a step slow or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But overall, I still feel like there's something missing with this team that makes me think that they're not legit contenders, at least as currently constructed.
I totally agree. I don't think I thought they would be pretty good. I don't think nothing. I watch them and I don't think, oh, they're not going to be able to figure this out in the playoffs. I think the Cavs could figure this out in the playoffs. That's how bad it is. I think they could absolutely lose to some of these mid to low rung teams. the Knicks could give them a hard time, like right now, as currently
Yeah.
constructed. Like, again, the Bucks aren't dead in the water because same thing that I say about the Sixers and I say about the Celtics are always a Kristaps Porzingis injury away from being vulnerable,
Hmm.
and there's nobody else good in the East. So, you've got to but even then, like we've never seen the Embiid Giannis playoff matchup, right?
Sure.
I
I,
don't I don't
I,
think
I
that's going
think,
to benefit Giannis. Like, to be honest, like I think
okay.
that's a yeah.
So the thing about that matchup is that we saw earlier in the year, they were pretty evenly matched. They went down to the wire. I think
Mhm.
that would be a super competitive team or super competitive matchup. I think Tyrese Maxey has been much better than Damian Lillard this year, and I also think that Nick Nurse is a way better coach than Adrian Griffin. And I think that Adrian Griffin, first off, shout out Pascal Siakam. Thank you very much. From what we have learned, is that they were coming down to picking between Adrian Griffin and Nick Nurse for their coaching job. And apparently Pascal Siakam was hanging out with Giannis. And after they hung out, he picked Adrian Griffin. And Siakam was coached by both of them in Toronto, and obviously didn't have the greatest relationship with Nick Nurse, so that could have potentially swayed his opinion on there. I like Dame's free throw rate that he's drawing, and he did a lot of this last year, but the free throw rate stuff, and this is something part of the reason why I think that Embiid has had some struggles in the playoffs when the whistle isn't going in his direction, is because these guys that depend on getting to the line all the time, if that goes away from time to time, it can frustrate them. Dame's percentages are way down across the board. Now, maybe that balances out over the course of a season, but he can't finish at the rim right now. His 3-point shot has been a little bit off to start the year. He's struggling inside the arc, and when he goes to the free throw line as much as he does in the regular season, I wonder if that goes away a little bit in the playoffs, that he will struggle, because right now I think he would have the highest free throw or rate of any guard in NBA history if the season ended today. So that's something to keep an eye on, is that he's
Good.
very dependent on getting to the line right now. So yeah, he would. Someone said in the comments. So that's kind of where I'd be concerned. If you're looking for signs of optimism about this team, Milwaukee, if you look, so some sites do this where they bake in the 3-point regression, whether negatively or positively. Like, for example, remember last year when the Celtics they couldn't miss a fucking shot and they looked like the greatest offense in NBA history?
Yeah, the regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the first
I
month
agree.
of the season in
Yeah.
November,
Yeah.
everyone was like, oh my God, OKC's gotten a little bit of favor in that regard so far this year. They're third in net rating, but if you bake in the regression and the strength of schedule, they fall to seventh place in net rating. I think it's fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth place in net rating. So if you look at dunksandthrees.com on their net ratings where they adjust for that stuff, it looks like teams like OKC might be benefiting from positive hot shooting and other teams not shooting great. Whereas Milwaukee might have the opposite, where their net rating isn't great. It's like a +1 something, I think, or maybe like a +2 for them, but it's a +3.5 on there, and it might get better as their shooting gets better. So positive signs for the Bucks is the shooting should balance out a little bit. They shouldn't be shooting 30% with both Dame and Giannis on the court, I would imagine.
Mhm.
But the positive part for them is that the shooting will regress, but the negative part is that, like, they still have some issues on defense, and that if that duo isn't the best duo in the NBA, they don't have enough depth and talent around them to make up for that not being the best duo in the NBA. That's what this whole team was built on, was that this pick and roll, this duo is going to be unstoppable, and that you could figure out the other pieces around them. If that isn't the case, then they could be in for a disappointing kind of playoff exit, I would imagine. So still very early, still a lot of time to figure some stuff out. I wouldn't fully count them out, but as of right now, I'm still not seeing contender. I'm seeing good playoff team and not contender yet. So, if you want to hit me with another, I
Yeah.
have a few as well.
So one of my favorite things to do, whenever it gets to be this time of the year, is I call this the Mickey Mouse wind predictor.
Mhm.
Like where this is I think one of the number one indicators of which team is about to come crashing back to earth. I just sort by opponent 3-point shooting percentage and see what that turns up. Do you want to guess which team has the lowest opponent 3-point percentage right now?
All right, I just want to say that last year everyone said this about the Sixers, and then it just never went in the other direction. And their defense was totally fine, but they were for a while they were number one. And then do you remember the first year the Knicks made their leap back in the
Yes.
playoff leap when they lost to the Hawks? They had like the luckiest 3-point percentage as well.
Yes.
For
Yep.
But who's the number one team? I'm going to say the Miami Heat.
It is not the Miami Heat. It is the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, that was another team.
31.8. So,
and league average is what, like 36, 37 probably?
Yeah, the Sixers are 15th with 35.6.
Yeah, so
and
it's somewhere
the Warriors are 35.9. So like it's part of that. Actually, the Heat are one of the unluckiest. Their opponents are shooting 38.3 against them.
Wow, that defense is insane then, because their defense is still really good.
Yeah. So that the Heat might actually, there's some indicators there that the Heat might actually be good. But I just
we could just ignore those.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm sure it's fine. What's this dead canary on the floor of the mine? I'm sure it's fine.
What are they going to do? Stab me in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I'll just kick it off to the side. It's fine. It's fine. What are they going to do? Trade for Zach Lavine?
So Bert says in the comments, "You can't make it, bitch." Ime Udoka.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just getting in the heads of all the opponents.
Yeah, it's So I don't know. I'm just that's what I'm keeping an eye on, and that let's just say that kind of checks out with what I think about the Rockets so far this year. Is I'm kind of waiting for the floor to not like drop out from under them, but for them to like go from being like in the playoffs to being like a more on the like lower end of things, like kind of scrapping for a tournament spot versus some of this other stuff.
So I think that's fair, and I also think that a lot of people have been talking about Cade Cunningham because he's been struggling to start the year, and he struggled a lot in his career.
Yep.
Not a lot of people are talking at least as much about Jalen Green, but there were a few guys when we did our rankings of the 25 best players in the NBA. The 3 guys I said really need to prove it this year, I thought were Jalen Green, Josh Giddey, and Cade Cunningham. And all 3 of them have been terrible to start this year. Jalen Green basically single-handedly lost them that Lakers game last night with some really terrible turnovers and decision-making. His scoring and ability to finish around the rim, he always, and we have a friend who watches the Rockets a lot so that we can, keep his identity protected. I won't say his name. But he basically says, this is year 3, and he's still attempting the same attempts that he always tries at the rim, and they never work. He just challenges bigs way too often. He thinks that he can dunk over guys. He thinks he can finish over guys, and he is not able to do that. And we're in year 3, and he has a new role on a new team. So sure, you want to give a guy all the benefit of the doubt. I just think that top of that draft in 2021, it's kind of crazy looking back to be like how sure everyone was about Cade, how sure everyone was about Jalen Green, and how much of a question mark we had about a few guys that went after him. Scotty Barnes, who's been amazing to start this year. Franz Wagner, who was seen as more of a role player that, he hasn't been great to start the year, but has balanced out a little bit over the past few games. And Jalen Suggs, who had a really bad start to his career and is now one of the best point of attack kind of guard defenders that we have in the NBA, and has looked incredible in the past few weeks.
Number 1 in steal percentage in the NBA right now.
Yeah. He's been amazing. And someone said when we did the the under 25 guys, they were like, Jalen Green is the third best Jalen from the 2021 draft.
Yeah.
Suggs and Johnson both have cleared him to start this year again. And and look, it's not Jover for him, but it's certainly starting to be like we said, we're less than a year away from these dudes getting extensions. And we don't know who they are as players, or it's just they're trending in the wrong direction.
Giddy, all three of these guys are on Can You Be Jordan Clarkson watch. Because that's how all of them are going to stay in the NBA. So,
feeling like the white Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, I was going to say Josh.
That's Tyler Hero.
Yeah, yeah.
Who in this? By the way, Zach Cram article about guys with high usage that don't get to the line, don't get to the rim, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The only two players that got to the free throw line less than Cade Cunningham that have as high usage as him were Kyle Kuzma and Tyler Hero. I just thought that was very funny to start. But yes. Let's go.
God. Oh no.
Those are our favorite players.
Yes.
But yes, that I just thought just some interesting. Who has more value on the trade market right now, Jalen Green or Cade Cunningham? 100% Cade Cunningham. It's flirting versus harassment at this point.
Yeah, that's a great example. Look, because I don't know if I were in charge of a team, I don't know who I'm trading for, but I guarantee you everyone in the NBA would, like, all the people running front offices right now in the NBA would say Cade Cunningham. So
yeah, 100%. The scouts and Steve Kerr would love it. I mean, look, Monty Williams, the most important thing to Monty Williams isn't are you a productive basketball player on the court? It is would I let my daughter marry you? Cade's a nice guy.
Yeah, Cade. Yeah. So.
He said the same thing about Landry Shamet.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm sure Killian Hayes is a really nice guy, too.
Yeah.
But, all right. Last thing before we get out of here, I do just want to bring up the fact that we do need, with this being calculator rat Christmas and all of the EPMs and such dropping.
Yes.
We do need to talk a little bit about some of the guys that are high on this list. So I had someone send me some information. Shout out to, honestly, do you know who's number one in defensive EPM?
Is it Rudy Gobert?
It's not Rudy Gobert.
Actually,
you know who's number one and number two? Don't look.
I don't know.
Both young players.
Young.
One's a rookie. Chet is two. And number one is...
It's going to be someone stupid. I'm trying to think of who would... Hold on. Let me guess. I know. I think I have the answer. I bet it's fucking Scotty Barnes because he has like insane... Yeah, I knew it. That not real. I'm sorry. Go away. Scotty
plus
Barnes.
Plus 3.2.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Look, I haven't watched a ton of the Raptors. Mm-hmm. This is something that I can't remember. I wish I could credit the podcast. It might have been Thinking Basketball podcast. Might have been Ben Taylor who said this. They did a most improved podcast, and Scotty was one of the people they talked about.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it was either Ben or his co-host said was the fact is they've removed Scotty from being point of attack, which is where he's always struggled because he's not super flexible. He doesn't have great hips. He can't really keep up with like guys in space. And they've moved him to be more of like a roamer and like an off-ball guy. And they've put better point of attack defenders at the front of the defense. And that allows Scotty to do all the things that he does really well. He's a good team defender. He can get steals and deflections and kind of cause havoc on the back line. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, even if he has some deficiencies on the ball, that's still a really valuable player to have with his skill set. And the only thing I'm not worried about the defense at all with Scotty. It's the offense where I'm worried about. They still have a really bad offense. And what does it look like when they get better offensive players that fit better with Scotty, which is why I don't think they'll ever trade OG, because I think OG fits well with Scotty. I'm interested to see what it looks like when they get more, instead of Pascal Siakam, get a better floor spacer, when they get guys that are more better fits, because right now the spacing is just a fucking mess right now. Honestly, Kevin Huerter would be a great fit with them because that's why they drafted Grady Dick, and Grady Dick's been terrible to start the year.
Do you know who the 7th ranked player in defensive EPM is? He's the third center on this list.
Well, I'm looking at this right. Is it Goga Batate? Is that who you're
It
talking
is
about?
Goga Batatse.
That's your. Isn't it? Are you Goga pilled?
I'm so Goga pilled after watching one
World-
Magic game. He was cooking. He was cooking in that Magic game. I was so impressed. Like I think Wendell was out that game and he just fucking kind of cooked. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
It is kind of funny looking at some of this list. Some of the guys that pop up, like Keegan Murray, who doesn't really have a reputation of being, but most
Chris
of the
Paul on there too.
yeah, well, Chris Paul's always had a good reputation as a defender, but like most of these guys are all defensive guys. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say Jade McDaniels, OG, even
uh,
Dylan Brooks,
yeah, Evan
Caruso.
Mobley, Caruso,
Yeah.
These are all like guys that you would be like, oh, they made the all defense team, and it makes sense. The top three guys are Scotty Barnes, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Suggs. Just something to keep an eye on. Very interesting. They've all looked really good on defense to start the year. But this conversation is not about those guys. It's only about one of those guys. It's about Chet Holmgren. Because Chet has the best rookie EPM I've ever seen in my life. And to the point where I tried to think of some recent rookies to have been really good and reached out to someone who subscribes to the premium dunks and threes, and they sent me the stats. Chet's EPM right now to start this year is a plus 5.3, just behind Donovan Mitchell and Tyrese Halliburton, and just ahead of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Maxey. He has a plus 2.3 on offense and a plus 3 on defense. Do you know who had do you know what Luka's rookie BPM was or EPM was?
Was it like 4 or something?
It was a plus 1.8.
Jesus Christ.
Chet
Oh
has
God.
almost 3 times as much as rookie Luka in EPM right now. Now, okay, let's just say offensive. Even if you just did offensive, he had a plus 2.3 EPM. It was year 2 where he made his real leap. And he was a plus 4.3 in year 2. LaMelo Ball was another guy that I thought could have been kind of interesting. Okay, where did he rank in this? Chet blew him out of the water in EPM. Like, it wasn't even close. LaMelo Ball's rookie EPM was actually slightly negative because he was so bad on defense. It was but for a rookie, that's still really good. Like, if you're around -1, that's good for a rookie in EPM. Like, if you have positive, it means you're doing a really, really good job. Chet has been one of the 10 best players at EPM, and I'm pretty certain in Darko, he's also been up there this year. He's been incredible. But the argument that people will say, Chet's 2 years older than most of these guys. He's 18 months older than Luka was as a rookie. He's older than Wemby and all these dudes. I get it. Rookies don't do this, is my point. Is that give me any rookie in NBA history. They're not ranking at the top of impact stats, no matter their age. There has not been a rookie who has maybe ever done this in the analytics age. And like watching the games, he just is fucking amazing for a rookie, even though he's 20 years old. Like, I still think that we're underselling how good he is for an NBA rookie. And they did the same thing with Ben Simmons. And Ben was a really good rookie. But like, the point here is that this just doesn't happen often.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I watched one game. I was like ready to like hate on Chet and like I watched exactly one game with Chet and I went, oh no, he's him. Like, I got to back that one up. Like, he's one of the best players. He's like one of the best rookies I've ever seen, just from an impact standpoint. The defense is crazy. Like, young bigs are not that good, and he had like 6 fucking blocks in the game that I saw. Like, against like real fucking guy, like Donovan Mitchell's a real fucking scorer inside. Like, that's not like nothing. Yeah. Like, it's just it was crazy. So
it was not Mickey Mouse, but so I just, dude, I watched the Golden State game 2 nights ago when they played against Golden State. Did you catch that game at all?
No, not at all. No.
So first off, OKC goes down 3 with 1.5 seconds left. Chet, did you see Chet's shot? Chet caught a 3 off movement, swung around, caught it, and made a 3 to send the game to overtime as time expired, coming off a screen, and just shot over. Wiggins was guarding or something. He couldn't even contest the shot because he's so fucking tall. And he, so far this year, has been incredible in that game against the Warriors. Now, Draymond didn't play, of course, keep that in mind, but still.
Right.
36 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on 14 of 22 shooting. And then the next game they play against Portland, and he has 16 points on 6 of 6 from the field, and they're blowing them out so badly he doesn't even have to play in the second half. Like, this guy for a rookie is so good. And like, it's now getting to the point where people are having the conversation, is he just better than Wemby? He's had the year advantage. He's had the year advantage. He's older than him.
Yeah.
There's definitely, but I'm just
he's
saying,
definitely got the better team. Like
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Context is way better. Absolutely. All I'm saying is guys aren't this good this early, and it's very hard to even catch up to the level of production that he's at in a year or two for Wemby. I'm just saying. It's not to say that Wemby doesn't have the better long-term ceiling and the idea of what Wemby can be, but Chet is very firmly in the him category. And we make this mistake all the time with young guys where it's like, well, this guy's 20 and this guy's 22. So like he has a 2-year advantage on him. And it's like, I talked about this with Tyrese Halliburton at the end of the Patreon episode. I was like, there's no way that there are certain guys that are ever going to reach up to the level that he's at 24, even though they're 21 or 22. And it's the same mistake that people make when like pre-draft, they were like, would you rather have Cade or SGA? And it's like, SGA is he's 22 and he's one of the 35 best players in the NBA. Why would I ever take this unknown guy?
Yes. No.
Yes. But
no.
Yes. So.
By the way, Gordon Hayward looking great. Future Philadelphia 76er.
So in the stat sheet, he looks amazing. Mm-hmm. Watching the games, he moves like George Niang now. So that does concern me a little bit.
He did just cook Porzingis in this game. So
I didn't even realize they were playing right now. Gordon Hayward's still good, don't get me wrong. And honestly, one of the reasons why I was higher on Gordon Hayward coming to the Sixers was because Batum's been so good for us that I'm like, oh, you just get smart role players to fit in, then this team could be great. But like, I don't know, maybe they don't need Gordon Hayward as much as I thought, because right now their problem is not been on offense. They have the number one offense in the NBA. I think they're going to look to address some of the defensive issues more so. But
Also, Brandon Miller got just destroyed at the rim by Drew Holiday.
Let's go.
I don't think he's going to be able to score around the rim like as he was like shying away from the it was really bad. Like Drew just came in and like
he's bad around the rim, but he's been good to start. Like he's been pretty good. Brandon Miller.
He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. That's fine.
It's as Keegan Murray taught us, it's always bad to draft the guy who's a little bit older and is a reliable wing shooter.
Yeah, that's Keegan. That's exactly Keegan Murray and Brandon Miller are identical guys in terms of their college background.
What?
There's one thing Brandon Miller has on his college background that's very different than Keegan Murray. I'm just gonna say that. So.
A little bit. So last thing I want to say before we get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Free Jaden Ivey. Ivy better, sadly, is the new agenda. So I see someone commented that he's 2 for 2 to start the game.
Okay.
I'm Hooper pilled still. I know we just did a whole calculator rat podcast. At one point, to balance this out, we'll do a Hooper podcast at one point. Jaden Ivey, I don't care what the stats say. I know he's actually been kind of good to start the year stats wise on offense. I don't care if he doesn't play defense. That dude can ball. I'm in on Jaden Ivey. I love him. So Ivy better, sadly.
Do we want to do a challenge?
Yes.
Talking about which Pistons guard we want to back. You can pick Jaden Ivey, and I will pick the other guard that people are. Yeah, I was going to do the joke. The other guard that people are arguing about that should start. That is, Sasser. Of course, yes, Marcus Sasser. Who should start.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Ivy better, sadly. Sassy better, sadly.
Yeah.
Sasser. That's going to be when it's the Ivy Sasser backcourt. At a certain point, it will be called the sassy backcourt.
The sassy backcourt. We're advocating the Killingham backcourt. It's gone.
It's Jover.
We want the sassy backcourt.
The sassy backcourt, and we will build around Duren and Asar. in this, and we'll have spot up shooters
I think
who can attack around them.
Durant and Asar. So it's just they're watching them ruin this team. It's just man.
Well, we'll
It's
see.
just,
Troy Weaver still has time to make it worse.
yeah, God, I hope not. I hope not, man.
Let's go. All right. Eagles are on in an hour, so I gotta go. But
All right.
Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back. Sign up for the Patreon if you have not already. We'll be back later in the week with our Patreon episode. And yeah. I'm not positive I want to do this yet, but I was thinking for the next concept. Someone said, we could do a washed or not washed podcast where we talk about players that we think are washed, because there's been a lot of conversation about a few players in the Warriors.
Okay.
So we'll do washed or not washed on the next episode. Subscribe to the Patreon if you have not already.
Watch Trill and I talk about guys our age and call them old fossils. Yeah.
This guy's 34. We should fucking kill him.
Yeah, he should just walk into the ocean. He's done.
All right. Peace.
Peace.